Who are the best HBCU prospects entering the NFL draft? We had that answer for you before the season, and we bring Gerald Huggins back to review his preseason top 10. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off doesn't mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Y'all getting used to that new little graphic down there? I am. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. And now the NFL playoffs are upon us. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel is making the NFL playoffs more exciting. Put down a $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300 back in bonus bets. Today is all about our preseason HBCU top 10 draft prospects. We will have an official list as we get closer to the NFL draft, but right now we're reviewing where we were before the year started with my friend Gerald Huggins. I got Gerald Huggins with us, ultimate friend of the show, constant contributor, and now that we're in pre-draft bowl season, we got a Legacy Bowl coming up. We got the Shrine Bowl in a couple of weeks and a bunch of other games that we'll be paying attention to and talking about. I want to start by reflecting upon our preseason top 10 HBCU prospects because we're getting back in the draft season, and eventually we'll have our official top 10 around probably April or so, something around there. You know, I'm always on the lookout. Also, if y'all haven't checked it out, go check out his comparisons between the HBCU prospects and some of the past players that are from HBCUs. Some aren't from HBCUs, but go check those out. Those are phenomenal. But our preseason top 10, you had Alabama A&M offensive lineman Carson Vinson, Alabama A&M wide receiver Jacoby Hewitt at 9. We're going to go down, of course, 10-1. Kenny Gallup, defensive back out of Howard. Carson Hinton out of Howard, defensive back. James Burgess, Alabama State defensive back at 6. 5 goes Eric Hunter out of Morgan State. 4, the linebacker out of Morgan State. 4, Kendall Bowler, defensive back, FAMU. 3, Karen Prunty. And then 2 and 1, I think that these were pretty obvious. Defensive tackle, Morgan State, Elijah Williams. And then also defensive back, Robert McDaniel. Actually, I'm lying. Robert McDaniel was a surprise to some people at that time, but I think he kind of showcased everything that he was to people. But we'll talk about him in probably segment 2, I think. When you hear that list back, Gerald, what are your first thoughts?
Well, for the most part, the guys that were on the list kind of ended up on the newer list for the most part. There was some guys that some had injury, some just didn't have the seasons that I thought they would have. And sometimes, because my thing now is I also, I speak with scouts because of my current job at Morgan State. So I speak with scouts and, I get a feel for other things that's going on at other schools and like how scouts are evaluating certain guys at certain schools. So, I mean, for me, I was just hearing things. I'm like, okay, I'll take that in consideration. But, for the most part, I trust my eyes. But
right.
I think I feel good about the original list because those guys during the summer scouting, they projected to be some of the best guys. And I think maybe except for a few, most of those guys ended up on the list after the season. So I would say maybe 2 injuries played a part. Yeah. But for the most part, that list was solid. I'll always stand on the things I post. I'm not one of those. I don't just hit nobody and tuck my hand. No. Yeah, I did it. So
I said that.
So it's all good. I mean, End of the day, man, it's fun. I enjoy that whole process because it makes me better. And
Yeah.
it's going all the way back from 2021 for real when I started. So just being able to see like who I projected early in the year, and then now as soon as the season's done, who had a good year, say okay, 7 out of 10. Why not?
No, solid. So you mentioned something about talking to scouts. So I just want to ask thought process to thought process. When you're looking at the preseason one, is that pretty much just the eye test? And then now you're using some of the things that you're hearing, or were you doing that in the first time as well?
So most of it primarily eye tests for me. I was trying to figure out some formulas and stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm analytical. Don't get me wrong. I use analyticals with my reports and stuff too." But I was really like, "Okay, just eye test it. We'll have a formula solidified by the next time you really do your final ranking. Will be like maybe you said right before the draft, after all the combines and pro days are done, all-star games are done. I'll do another final one. But for the most part, I do take how the league views some of the prospects into consideration, but all in all, as I'll explain as we go through the newer list, there's going to be like, hey, I may not feel as high on this guy, but others are high on him, and I don't mind saying that. Doesn't make a bet out, because at the end of the day, there's some people that think, Shador is a day 2 guy. There's some people that think he's a first overall pick. It's really, and I just want to make sure that's clear that positional value and the need supersede a lot of things. Some teams are like, okay, we're gonna go for the best guy available. So the teams are like, no, we need to go for the best guy for the need. So yes, there are gonna be guys that may be day 2 guys for some that others view as day 1, and well, that's how you end up with a Lamar late in the first round. That's how you end up with a Mahomes late in the first. This is how it goes. So
seeing somebody say Jaden Daniels was gonna be terrible.
I mean, you really never know. The kid never know, amazing, and they just end up something could happen, and now they're just not what you thought they were on tape, and it's okay.
Yeah. No, that's true, and I think that's fair. One of the things that I remember was my biggest takeaway was the amount of defensive backs that were on that list. I believe it was 6 of the 10 players on that list were defensive backs. I'm not asking about each one individually. You can name any of them, right? Like, you don't have to hold back any names. But in general, do you feel like defensive backs lived up to the hype in 2024?
That is definitely the best position group to me. HBCU wise, man, I don't think much has changed even with the current list. I would say that like James Burgess, Rob McDaniel, those guys stood out. Kendall was even steady. I didn't have higher expectations for Kendall, but he didn't do anything to really kill himself this year either. He's still going to be a guy that's going to be a high test guy. He's going to interview well, very likable guy. I'm not worried about Kendall Boller's draft stock from like he's a height, weight, speed guy at the bare minimum. So that's at least will get you in the door. So I'm cool with that with Kendall Boller. Kenny Gallup he didn't do anything to hurt his stock to me.
Okay.
He's been nice and even, steady. He did clean up some things that, me and him talked about. I'm sure he talked about with his coaches. He did clean up some things throughout the season that looked better. And I was able to personally see like a kid like Carl Decius or Carvansky Decius at Morgan. I would be able to see that in person every day. And, you root for a kid like that just thoroughly just works his tail off, just does everything right. You just love to root for a kid like that. So there are a bunch of different other defensive backs that definitely could have a claim to like, hey, I want to get in the camp too. Well, you may have a shot. So This is the best. I mean, by far the deepest group. I mean, quarterback, not so much. Halfback is probably the second best group. Receiver, not so much. Tight end, not so much. O-line, no. D-line is very top-heavy, to say the least. Linebacker, not so much. So, yeah, it's pretty much the DBs and the running backs have kind of taken over as the top prospects.
There's something that you and I talked about. We texted about it. And I was like, you got to bring that up. And I think it was something draft-related. Maybe it was a misconception about how people view the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this?
Mm-mm.
This was recent. This was recent when you first sent me your comparisons.
Mm-hmm. What did I say?
I'll find it. I'll find it. Next answer, I'm gonna look for it, and I'm gonna yeah, I don't know what it is. I think this happened on here, but I'll look for it, man. But I do want to ask you, because you did mention he'll get in the door, and I think that we place a lot of emphasis on being drafted because, quite frankly, it's not a lot of them, right? It's not a lot of HBCU guys who get drafted. Do you think we'll ever stop placing an emphasis on that, or do you think we should ever stop placing an emphasis on the actual act of being drafted and more so how many kids get into camp?
I mean, just like me as a recruiter, man, I'm gonna shoot for the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if I land on the cloud, I'm still higher than I was before.
Facts.
So that's just how I look at it. It's like, hey, like, yes, we want to get some guys drafted, but I want to make it very clear, and I might actually do a post about this at some point. This is, if people haven't noticed, it's the G4, it's the P4 versus everybody.
Yeah.
When it comes to the draft, like, you're going to see the first round of the draft might have, and this might be crazy, it might have one ACC guy and one, maybe two Big 12. The rest will be Big 10 and SEC. The second round is not going to be that much different. You may see some more ACC. You may see some more Big 12 running through there. You're not going to start seeing FCS guys, G5 guys until you get into day 3. I mean, that's just what it is. And I mean, it's just not, a lot of the top FCS guys move up. A lot get lost in the sauce. Some don't. My biggest thing is like, hey, I like the guys that stuck it through. It's played 4 years. You know what I mean? Like a lot of FCS guys that are here. Not a lot of top FCS prospects, they were at the institutions for 3-4 years. Some 5. I love it. I want to see it more. But that's just not the landscape. That's just not the landscape.
No, it's not.
It's not. So, end of the day, you know, my expectations are definitely tempered than they were in prior years. I just got to be, and now I think with the growth and more access that I'm getting in, certain rooms and stuff like that, I'm like seeing the actual process of how these things go. So it's like, oh, okay. So the outside looking in perspective is always going to be different than the one you inside. So now it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I was a little overzealous. Maybe I was a little like, yeah, maybe he probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Now, and what I will say is through this process, I think this is going to be my 4th draft covering this on this show. The overestimation is done. I can look back at some of the things I said and say, oh, you was naive. You was a little naive about that. Like, that's just not, maybe you overvalued this. You just didn't understand the way it goes. First of all, I couldn't find the message, so I don't know what it is. I can't find it. Maybe it wasn't our messages. Like, maybe that wasn't what it was. But one thing I'll say is it's no more what should happen. And I've seen that in your coverage as well. No more, well, this guy should be. No, I think this guy has a talent of this, but this is what I think is going to happen. And that's kind of the whole thing about this. So let's push forward in the top 10 and get a little bit more specific. Let's get a little bit more specific and talk about these players who exceeded your expectations. Because I know one guy who I think exceeded a lot of people's expectations, even though we all thought he was going to be pretty good, as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Now, this is the place to get all of the real sports money action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Here's the thing, it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. So here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, then you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson or if it's Josh Allen. I don't care if it's Travis Kelce or if it's Mark Andrews. I don't care if it's Jahmyr Gibbs or if it's Kyron Williams. You can have anything you want. You pick the 2 players that you pick. It can be the same game, same team, doesn't matter. Ready for the run your game this season? Download the app today and use the code Locked On College to get $50 instantly. When you play your first $5 lineup, that's $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day for your second listen. Make sure you're checking out Locked On College Football. The national championship is only a day or two. What? It's Monday, so you got 2 days. You got the weekend. So make sure that you're tapping into that Locked On College Football to get you prepared for the biggest game of the season. Got Gerald Huggins here with me. Honestly, just a draft expert specialist. It's the reason we continue to do this. We're playing off of his top 10 HBCU prospect list from the preseason. Of those 10 guys, who's somebody who exceeded your expectations? I kind of alluded to somebody I think it is, but if it's not him, I'll tell you after you answer.
Sure, you don't want to tell me who you think it is?
Nah, because you got your. I think it's Burgess. I'll be honest with you. I think Burgess exceeded a lot of his expectations, even though he was already looked at very highly. I don't know if we thought he was going to be as dominant this year. That's what I thought.
Nah, Burgess was. I tell you, man, Coach James Williams, man, he's that guy. That guy, when he says something, man, he backs it up. I'll give him that, and that means a lot to me, man. He's like, oh, listen, I'm telling you. I know what you see on tape. I'm telling you, this kid, he's dedicated. He's working to fix a lot of things that you see. It's gonna be better. I said, okay. I said, cool. I said, listen, the Aeneas Williams Award, like that. I was like, yo, listen. I mean, in my opinion, before the season started, like it's the swacks to have.
Yes.
I mean, they had a really strong group of DBs, as you can see. A lot of them in the top 10. You know what I mean? So I think with Burgess, man, I think his off coverage, it was so much. But that was the biggest thing with the off coverage, just how he was moving off coverage, his pedal, just a technical thing when it came to his off coverage. We knew what he could do in press man. One thing that really stood out to me, outside of his just transitions, his hips, the fluidity and stuff like that. It was how physical this kid was, like a tackle. He looked. I mean, I saw it. He was probably the most physical DB that Coach James Williams has had. And he beats people up. I mean, receivers trying to block him, he beating you up. He'll get down to the line of scrimmage. I could probably see some safety in this future if he wants to. He's already 6'2", 200 pounds. You know what I mean? I could see it, but I like him at corner. I just, like I said, the footwork has improved in off ball and off man coverage. The zone is there. He has the length to be able to redirect, to be able to get in passing windows. He's smart. The kid is dedicated. The top end speed, similar to Mikey's, is going to be the question. Is he going to be a 4.5 guy? Is he going to be a high 4.4? Is he going to be a high 4.5? Is he going to be a low 4.6 guy? That's going to really determine what happens with him. Once again, Coach Williams said he's gonna run well. So I said, okay. So with me, I was happy to see someone just grow from last year to this year. It was just nice to see. It's like a lot of kids stay real stagnant.
Yeah.
They don't grow every year. Like most of the kids on the list, they've grown. Like Elijah has grown. Rob McDaniel grew. He was put in a better situation. Carl, he grew.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How do you feel about, because I remember this vividly because Robert McDaniel was the one who kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the big thing was you probably projected with him more than anyone else. And it was the idea that if put in the right position, he will show you all of the belief I have in him. Do you feel like Jackson State did a great job of putting him in those type of positions?
They put him near the line of scrimmage and let him beat people up. He beats people up. I mean, the kid is 6'2", 210 pounds. He plays safety. He played corner. He could play linebacker. He come off the edge. He play nickel or rover, whatever you want to call it. The jargon is your overhang, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a football player, as Coach Nooks would like to say. My boy Nooks. He's a football player. Put him on the field. Let him play some football. I don't really care about the credit thing. But I know I talked about Rob before the season in hopes that people would just get some eyes on him. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to see that, some people are noticing Rob. And that's good because I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but if I did, cool. If not, I don't care. The kid's getting he's getting the looks that he deserves to get. So my thing is like you have, this could be a little tricky with positionless guys, but he really line him up as strong safety. He's had coverage ability before. He's very aggressive, so you really don't want to put him in too many situations where he's going to be having to mirror and match these little quick guys or nothing like that. However, he could be a solid zone coverage, rover, overhang nickel. He could be a strong safety. If you need him to be a sub-package linebacker, he could do that too. He fits the run well. I've seen him thud up, shock and shed offensive linemen and make plays. Tight ends in this conference did not want to block him. They did not want to block him. If you look, and then, Jackson's like, okay, well, we kind of need you to play corner again so we can get a ring. And he played corner 2 straight games. I think he had like, what
3?
2, 3 interceptions in 2 games.
He had 3. He had 2 in the SWAC championship, and I think he got 1 in the Celebration Bowl.
I don't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know for sure he played. That was probably the best corner play he had since his Alcorn days. But that just once again shows, hey, Rob, we need you here. You just do what you got to do. And when I met him the night before, the day before, that was a determined young man right there. And he looked me right in my eye. So he's tall, he's a big kid, man. I finally saw him in person. I'm like, dang, this kid is big. So that's why I comped him who I comped him to. He reminded me so much of Marquise Bell.
Yeah, I think it's a great compliment. Even when you speak about the ability to play sub-package linebacker, I didn't love that Dallas had him do it, but he did it, and he did it, I would say, as effectively as somebody of his size could have done it. Yeah. So let's push forward. I want to ask about some disappointments. Somebody who maybe didn't live up to what you thought they were going to be. Don't know what that counts as, but yeah, you can't skip this one. I let you talk your way out of who exceeded the expectation, but I don't have nobody who disappointed it. Yeah, I do. But we'll see as we continue with Locked On HBCU.
Disappointment sounds so harsh.
It does. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive of the NFL playoffs, FanDuel said it's time to up the score. You've seen 150, you've seen 200, you've seen 250, but now that it's playoff time and the stakes are higher, FanDuel knows what to do. They're going to up the bonus bets that you get. All you have to do is put down a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's $300. Go ahead today. Go to FanDuel.com. I don't even know what you're waiting for. You waiting for me to finish talking? You can do it while I'm talking to you. And let's say you're a basketball fan. No one says you can't get the benefits. Even if you're a basketball fan betting on LeBron James and Ja Morant, you can still take advantage of the deal. You're new to FanDuel, doesn't matter the sport. You put down a $5 winning bet and you'll get $300 back in bonus bets. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com to take advantage of this offer that won't last long. FanDuel.com, make every moment more. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Segment 3 is mandatory when Coach Gerald Huggins is on the show, giving us quality content from start to finish, and now we're here for his favorite part of the show. Who was his biggest disappointment from the top 10? All jokes aside, let's not laugh, because people think you be hating if you say something and you gotta like laugh with it. We're not hating, but there's somebody in this top 10 who didn't live up to what you thought they would be. It is really just a matter of if you want to put a name on it or not.
I mean, okay.
And listen, it don't have to be their fault. It does not have to be their fault.
Correct. So this is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Injuries played a part.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't tell me that Jacoby Hewitt wasn't going to lose his mind this year.
Yeah.
There's nothing that said, hey, this kid isn't going to go for at least 6, 7, maybe 800 yards, double-digit touchdowns, and just it didn't happen. You know, it comes with the game.
And you
it's
know
like,
what was strange to me, to interrupt you, sorry?
Mm-hmm.
It felt like even before the injury, they weren't feeding him the way that I thought that they should have.
No, but
it didn't feel like they were incorporating him enough in the offense.
No, man. I mean, his only touchdown this year, I think, was like against a D2 school. That's not okay. Like I think how many targets he had on the year? 30.
It wasn't a lot, and I thought he missed more time with injury than he did.
Yeah, you think he missed almost a whole season, man. It was tough. I can't kill him for that, but I was very high on him, you know, because he came in late in the party as my wide receiver 1. Because I'm like, man, like you just look at how he's built. He looks fast, run out the catches there. You know, could be, you know, he obviously got to work on the route running, but man, just get the ball in his hand and let him make a move. They'll make a move and go. You know what I mean? I think he could line up anywhere. I know everybody wants the Debo, DJ Moore, you know, Malachi Corley kind of build thing. Listen, I feel like he could stretch the field. I feel like you throw it to him on the screen, let him run around and go. I just feel like there's so many creative ways you could just maximize this player's talent. And I just, like, every time I looked, I was like, oh my God, what happened? Okay. I left it alone. So I was like, you know what? It's cool. And then someone else I would say, I mean, it's pulling. I mean, Karan, I mean, I know I think he ended up transferring.
Yeah, I thought he was out of eligibility this year.
Yeah, me too. But he ended up transferring to Wake Forest, actually, which is funny because as a team, I think he had a pretty good game versus Wake Forest, actually, when he played against them. I think it was the first game of the year. Now, I'm not gonna say he didn't have a good year. I think he had a solid year. It's just I was expecting more like production.
Yeah,
you know, like more picks and stuff like that. Now I know sometimes, you know, picks for a defensive back, as you know, it's
subjective.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
it's subjective. Like look at the Texans game, right? Texans versus Chargers. Derek Stingley got 2 interceptions. Those interceptions were not created equally.
No, and they're usually not. But you know, hey, it's like, who you want, Asante Samuel or Darrelle Revis? Which one you want? Like, you want a guy that's going to shut the guy down, or you want the guy who may give up a little something, but he's going to take it to the crib at some point?
What do you want?
Me?
What do you want?
Yeah, as a D lineman, oh boy. Man, I just like someone that could, like, at least if I know the best player on their team is not going to get the ball, I'm cool with that.
Me too. Like, I think I want the guy who's going to just erase something.
Yeah, I like that. Don't get me wrong. I love watching Asante Samuel play.
Yeah,
I like the fact he just gets his hands on the football at will. Loved it, but it's like, it's kind of like what's my man name from the Cowboys? Bland
and Diggs was like that 1 year. I think Diggs got a little bit more consistent. I feel like
Diggs, I think, has a higher upside as a corner, but it's just like, dang, man, you done gave about 100 yards today, but man, you had 2 interceptions. I don't want that. It's like, at least I know, like a Pat Surtain, it's like, I really don't got to work. Like, he had a couple games, but he's a DB in the NFL. It's hard to cover. It really is. So it's like, okay, you have 1 or 2 bad, but for the most part, you know, Pat Surtain, I ain't worried about that. Okay, I'm good. I get a couple extra seconds to pass rush because I know the first read who is going to be the guy that the quarterback is looking at that you're covering is going to be covered. So all that to say, you know, Karan, I'm wishing him the best. I just wanted more production out of him, but when it comes to, like, he is who he is, man. He is a tall, a long, instinctual zone coverage corner, and he's a good tackler. He might have some versatility. I wouldn't probably put him in a nickel, me personally. I'll just let him just be tall on the outside and let him sit in that cover 3, let him sit in cover 2, let him roam around, have some fun. That's where I'll have him. And Jacoby, it happens, man.
It happens. Yeah. No, I think that Hewitt was my guy. Prunty's timing in the portal was just interesting to me. I'd have left last year. I kind of thought he was just gonna stick it out, but
hey man, the game is the game, man.
Yeah, I thought he would have left after the first really bad A&T year, A&T team year. But I mean, it is what it is. I think he's gonna build his stock up. Being a bad player on a bad team isn't great. Being a bad player on a bad team on a subdivision that is regularly neglected, I mean, can we really blame him?
Good thing for him, he's done it at the Power 4 level before.
Yes.
And he's going to get another opportunity to do it again. So he might be okay. Now, I got to find out how old he's going to be. I'm pretty sure he's going to at least be 23, which is, I guess, pretty normal at this point. So that's not a big deal. But for the most part, man, the guys at initial top 10, these are guys that have been spoken highly of from people that I spoke to. I watched the tape. These are guys that have been doing this for years for the most part. They've been consistent, like playing good, decent, like good football on our level for years now. So now it's really up to them. You know, everything. There's nothing else we could do on this end. They got to play.
Conversations don't always go the way that you planned it. This went a bunch of different directions, but I really enjoyed just talking football. I really did. Sometimes we'll take those pivots, but a lot of the top 10 is going to be the top 10. So the way I view it, we'll see and talk about these players as we get closer to the draft. Just going into different football aspects was definitely fun. So I hope that you guys also enjoyed it. You already see his Twitter handle at the bottom, but Gerald, please tell them where they can find you at.
Find me on pretty much everything is Coach_Huggins. I guess I got to say be technical, or the second, whatever works for y'all. Find me on Instagram, Twitter. I'm on Threads with the same thing. I started using Threads. That's fun.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cool. It's like I just put my little random scouting reports on there. You know, little quick little stuff. So you can find me on that. I also write for Blue Bloods. I'm working. I'll be at the HBCU Combine. I'll be at the Legacy Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and what else I'm be at? And the Jim Thorpe Award. So just follow me. I'll try and give you some updates on what I got going on. My life's not that exciting, but it's okay.
Sounds like it. I'll be back on Friday. Full transparency. We're recording this well in advance. I don't know what has happened, so I can't tell you what we'll be talking about on Monday, but I'll be back on Monday. I can tell you that. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.